So I'm about to get my 3 layers together so I can put it on my frame. And what I've decided to do is basically experiment a little bit and take a little bit of risk and see if it works out. And if it does work out, awesome. If it doesn't work out, you'll get to see me fix the issues on the video, because I plan to make videos maybe for every week of this challenge, depending how it goes. If it gets too repetitious of the same thing over and over again, I might not, but as long as there's still new things to show, I will make videos for the whole set of the challenge. So what I'm doing now, I have my backing, my batting, and the quilt top layered here on my cutting board. Again, my cutting mat is about 34 inches by 23 inches, so I'm not working in a huge area. I've aligned the center of my backing, the center of my batting, and the center of my panel. Now I will say I kind of cheaped out on my backing on this. Well, really what happened was I ordered online for Joann's to be able to pick up in the store, and you can only order in full yard increments through the app. So I ordered 4 yards, which is about, it's comes out to 72 inches once you cut it and sew it. And the quilt is 70 inches. So my backing is 72 inches, my panel is 70 inches. So I've got like an inch on each side. This is the sides, not the top or bottom. So what I'm doing is this edge is actually the side of the panel, not the top, because I want to control this edge. I want to control the sides because I don't have a lot of wiggle room. So what I'm going to do is, instead of pinning all along the top, I'm going to be pinning all along this side so that I know I'm within that inch to the edge all the way across. So I hopefully won't run out of backing. So make sure I got batting all the way to the edge of my panel. So the quilt top is 81 inches long, and the 2 halves of the backing sewed together came out to, I think, 85 or 86. So it's a little short on the top and bottom as well. So I will be using a leader cloth, which I don't normally do. I like to have 6, 7, 8 inches on the top and bottom so that I don't need a leader cloth. But again, I didn't want to have to order another whole yard of the fabric. So what I'm doing is I am just going to place pins along this edge. And again, the only reason I'm going all the way across on these sides is so that I know my side stays within an inch of the edge of the backing. And I'm not super worried, because I know even if I do run out of backing, there's ways to fix it. And this isn't going to be an heirloom quilt. This isn't going to be a show quilt. This is a learning quilt. This is one of Angela Walters' Free Motion Challenge quilts. And for me, it's learning and fun. So, if the back has to get pieced a little bit more than expected, I'm okay with that. It's just, this is a quilt that's going to be thrown on the back of our couch and used to cover our legs and feet when it gets a little chilly. So I've started in the middle, pinned all the way across to the end of the cutting board, and now I'm going to do this side. Okay, So I've got this edge pinned down all the way across my cutting board. Now before I shift my quilt, so if you watched my video about the king size quilt, you know that I only did one row of pins along the whole top for the whole quilt for basting. I'm going to do a little different with this quilt because again we're starting in the middle, which is down here hanging off the side. We're starting in the middle, and I need to make sure my quilt is stable in the middle before I quilt it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some safety pins, and I'm going to pin my 3 layers in this area, in the center, until I get to the center area where I'm going to be quilting. The reason that I decided to do this instead of stitching in the ditch around these designs is after watching the first video this afternoon, stitching along the edges of these designs is going to help maneuver around the designs, and I don't want to have too much thread buildup in those areas going around those shapes. So I felt like if I ditched all the shapes ahead of time, then I would be going back and adding a second layer of ditch stitching around them all, and you know that's not the worst thing. That going over your stitching happens a lot when you're working out your quilting designs, but I thought it might be too much to have it everywhere. Plus, if I'm honest, I'm a little bit lazy. You know, you could call it being efficient, but really it's just being lazy. I don't want to have to hoop and hoop and hoop this whole quilt just to outline these shapes before I even get started quilting. And the same with just putting basting lines all over it. I didn't want to have to go through all that hooping just to do basting lines. If I was on a 3-rail frame, a rolling frame, it'd be a little different because you load the quilt once and then you can roll back and forth, and that would be a lot easier to manage rather than having to hoop all the time over and over again. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to slide my quilt so I can continue to pin along the top. And again, the only reason I'm doing this is because I don't have a good amount of extra backing. I have plenty of batting. It's just the backing that I'm a little short on. My batting is about 10 inches longer than my top in this direction. But I'm just going to leave that for now. My backing is definitely past my top, so I'm okay there. So I'm going to use this side as the bottom. So the way this quilt is designed, there's not really a top or bottom because it's all symmetrical. So I'm going to use this as the bottom, so I can just let this extra batting hang for a while until I'm ready to trim it off. So what am I going to do now? Since this is going to be my bottom, and I'm going to start, well, I'm starting from the middle, not starting from the top. I'm going to turn my quilt so that the top of the quilt is up in front of me, the bottom of the quilt is down to the ground. The side that I pinned will be on my left. And here is the center medallion where we're going to be starting with. So I'm going to position that right about there. Grab my pins. Now, my goal right now Actually, I'm going to slide it a little more. As I've got pins in this section, I want to work off that section. In fact, I might even go a little higher. But I need to make sure everything is flat and smooth where I'm pinning. So this place here is secure, but none of this other stuff is. So I need to make sure there's no tucks or pleats in the batting or the backing. So here's where the middle medallion starts. I want to lock in everything around this medallion because that's where I'm going to hoop. So in addition to basting up here, I'm actually going to baste a little bit into the center motif because some of that will be hooped, and I need part of the quilt that was inside the hoop to be basted. And I think that will make more sense when I go to hoop the quilt. So for now, I am just going to be putting pins in here, just making sure it's all smooth from these pins out. So this whole area up top here, I'm going to leave unbasted because that's not even the part that I'm quilting this week. So it doesn't really matter if it's basted or not, because I will work with that when I get to that area. By the time I get to that area, all this area will be quilted and stable. So I'll be able to smooth it out nicely from my quilting and be able to be sure that it lays nice and flat. So what I'm going to do now is scooch the quilt up some more because I want to get on the sides of the center motif and a little bit of the center motif as well, because I can't fit the whole thing in one hooping. Okay, so this here is the center, and this week's quilting goes around the yellow petals and inside these orange petals. So I need to be able to quilt as far as that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to smooth it out from the pins, which means I'm going to come from the bottom because my pins are on the side and on the top. So this is a 24-inch ruler, and I get about 29 inches or so across the frame. So this can give me a guide as to how much will actually be in the frame. So I definitely can get I can get all the way across the whole center. So, but I'm just going to make sure I have some pins inside this 24 inches. So I know that when I go to hoop it, everything will be where I need it to be. And then of course I will take these out before I start quilting. Because once the quilt is hooped, the fabric, the top and the batting and the backing aren't going to go anywhere. They're stable. This is just to hold it together until I can get it hooped. Okay, I'm just going to do a little bit down here just to make sure the bottom is secure, and then I'm done. I'm not going to go all the way to the bottom because there's no reason to. I'm not going to be quilting there. By the time I am quilting there, I'll have quilting here to have secured it. I feel like this is pretty good. I feel like I can hoop this area knowing that my 3 layers are going to stay very stable and where they are without shifting and puckering.